So you might be wondering what an artist is doing at a world conference on dying, the right to die. So you're all familiar with the hot chocolate song. It started with a kiss. Well, this started with a jellyfish. Now, that might seem strange to people maybe outside the science field, but the collection of work you see at the very back of the room here was informed by scientific research in the cancer space. And I hope to impart some wisdom to you about the jellyfish. There is a jellyfish that fluoresces green naturally. And what they do is they genetically modify this fluorescent green protein, and they attach it onto a protein inside the human body. And it can then map fluorescently how cancer maps through the body, how tumor cells, how immune cells map through the body. And this blew me away. And I realized there was a disconnect between people and the sciences. And it was that first initial introduction to the cancer research space which led me to the work you see behind you. So it's called the Vitruvian. And there is a relevance to me being here today and how this fits in with end of life and assisted dying. And very briefly, the painting is trying to engage people in very complex and sometimes hard to manage conversations by developing a visual language that can engage the public in an awareness campaign and understanding. So the initial concept was, how do we break down these barriers between maybe something that people feel like they can't talk about, they won't talk about, and how do we foster that environment? So the first thing to do was to break down the barrier about engagement into the arts. And what better than the Vitruvian man? So essentially you have the male and female overlapped. And this is to represent the work done at UCD, so the University College of Dublin, which is one of our main colleges, and is under the Conway Institute. And they're the cancer research facility. So essentially with the painting, you have the different areas of the cancer research mapped throughout the body. The brief was, Professor Gallagher, who funded this project, wanted to show how cancer can affect the whole body, tissue level, cellular level, and molecular level. So at the very top of the painting, you have the two circles. Normally the Vitruvian has one circle. The two circles represent cell division. And for those outside the science field, you have a certain kind of genetic coding in your body. And then at this genetic level, this is where cancer occurs, and there's a mismatch in the coding. As you move in down to the bottom of the small little tiles, there's a mismatch in the code, and this is where the cancer is manifesting and going into the body. So what I do in the practice is, I work directly with scientists, and I work directly with patients. And this is where the patient voice comes in. And I want to thank Janie and everybody here for an incredibly enlightening conference, because it has spread my eyes wide open to another avenue I didn't realize existed. So thank you very, very much. It was incredible. And what I do is I work with the patients on their lived experience with cancer, and I work with the scientists who are currently researching ways to make them living with a terminal illness easier. And it's all throughout the painting. So I'm not going to go into, I won't have time to go into all the different nuances of the painting, but I will advise people to maybe come back afterwards. I'll be here for about half an hour afterwards. I can take people through the deeper parts of it. So what you have is like it maps through the body, you come down to the bottom, and in the center of the Vitruvian, you'll see there's actually twins. The Vitruvian is pregnant. This represents work done by Professor Walter Kolsch, where he's trying to provide a certain level of care in childhood cancer. This also kind of correlates to the fact that people do not want to speak about dying. People say the Irish do death very well. We do funerals very well. We don't do the build-up to them very well at all. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to foster this conversation and collaborative process to show the visual arts is a very powerful and non-confrontational way to get across very serious subject matter. So in the center of the Vitruvian, you have these two twins. This represents a concept being developed called the digital twin. And it's an instance of childhood cancer where normally a child who has cancer will get recurrence of the cancer. You have a binary coded one to represent this digital aspect, which Professor Kolsch is trying to develop, where if there is a change at a molecular level, they can track it digitally and it will grow along with the biological child who has had cancer. And they will catch the change at a molecular level so they can do more precise treatments, which means the child will not have to undergo chemotherapy again. It's a last resort, which is a standard of care, which fits in perfectly to the standard of care you're trying to provide for patients at the end of life. As you move down then, there's also a small golden area. This represents the work done in the prostate cancer area, where they're trying to develop a PCR test, like the COVID test, that can actually identify prostate cancer, how advanced the prostate cancer is, and if you need to go and get surgery from a simple urine test. This is technology being developed in this country. What you have moving on is extra paintings. And this comes down, the one on the, I'm left-handed, so I get my left and right mixed up. The one on the left-hand side, which is the full female body, this represents some of the women who informed this painting, which are women who had ovarian, cervical, and breast cancer who went and got surgeries. Some women I speak to are at stage 4 metastasis breast cancer and are actively discussing with me their options at this moment, and end-of-life care, and the VA is not an option for them at the moment. So what you have is you have the different surgeries dialogued down throughout the body. You have the removal of the breast, which is an amputation, which the patient advocates have voiced to me. My mastectomy is actually an amputation, and I don't want to be dressed up as something that it's not. I've lost my identity to my maternity. I breastfed my children. And this is all the power of the patient voice, which is what I want to speak about today, which is about getting the voice of the people who will be availing of the right to die with dignity. And in the other painting as well, this is all about breast imaging, tissue imaging, and about lobular breast cancer, which actually develops as a long, thin tumour, so most women think it's actually a vein. This is all in the service of getting the ideas out there in a way that's accessible to the public, where sometimes audible may fail. The saying goes, a picture paints 1,000 words. Over here, the Vitruvian has given birth to these two children. One is the biological twin, and one is the digital twin, which is an AI-generated image. And in this painting, the biological twin, in its scrubs, is handing over a symptom to the digital twin to take away whatever symptom it might not want, based on the data of the children who have died previously, so that no child will have died in vain. We do public engagement events all over the country as a way to break down the barriers between the public engagement to the sciences. And we're finding them incredibly powerful, and the public are giving incredible feedback. But how I came to meet Janie was through an incredible woman who was a female health advocate called Vicky Phelan. And this is my painting of Vicky. And you'll see she's flanked by two horses. The black horse is her cancer, and the white horse is her right to die on her own terms. So the analogy goes, death rides on a pale horse. At the point of painting this painting, we had no idea where Vicky's diagnosis was going to lead her. There's an old Irish fable about Tiernan Og, which is a story of a man who falls in love with a woman on a white horse, and he goes away to the undying lands, the land of youth. And he comes back as he misses his kin, and he falls to the ground and becomes an old man, and he was warned not to get off the horse. At the time of painting this, Vicky was going to the States to get treatment, and we didn't know whether she was going to come back. Ultimately, Vicky had to leave the canvas on her black horse because she did not have access that you're advocating for here today for the white one. And people will wonder sometimes and ask me, why is the Vitruvian set? Why are those paintings set against the backdrop of the galaxy? And if I was to tell you all I know where you all live individually, you'd all look at me and say, that's a breach of GDPR, Vincent. But you're right here, you're there. I think people sometimes forget that we are all currently hurtling through the universe on a ball, and we are citizens of a planet. And I am of the opinion that should one of our human beings, one of our fellow human beings, one of our fellow citizens, need our assistance in whatever case, and in this instance, it's facing a terminal illness and the right to die with dignity, there is a duty of care to whoever can help. I do my bit in the arts, but I look at the people around this room doing the incredible work you're doing, and I absolutely salute you. Thank you very much.